She froze in the middle of the café, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. And for a moment, it looked like the world had stopped. The laughter around her felt like it came from another planet. Everyone was staring, some trying to stifle their giggles, and she had no idea why. She didn't hear the whispers, didn't understand the smirks. But the way people looked at her made her heart sink. She wanted to disappear, vanish into the floor, but she was rooted there, vulnerable, exposed, and utterly alone. Then a man approached, calm, confident, his eyes gentle, and the room seemed to shift. Everyone went quiet, and a strange tension filled the air. What happened next made everyone there stop in their tracks, unsure if they should laugh, gasp, or cry. If you love stories that warm the heart and restore your faith in humanity, make sure you subscribe to Kindness Tales. Hit the like button if this story touches you, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear how kindness has changed your life too. She had always been quiet, the kind of person who lingered in the background, unnoticed except by those who really looked. She grew up in a small town where people often didn't understand her. Born deaf, she had learned to read lips and communicate with a mix of sign language and writing notes. School had been a minefield of awkwardness and isolation. Kids can be cruel without realizing it, and she had endured her fair share of whispered jokes and pointed stares. By the time she reached her early 20s, she had grown careful, shy, and protective of the little world she carried with her inside. Her co-workers thought they knew her well enough, but they didn't. They knew her as polite, reserved, and unassuming, the quiet girl who never caused trouble. But on this particular Friday afternoon, a group of them decided to have some fun at her expense. They had arranged a blind date for her, not as a genuine gesture of concern or friendship, but as a joke. They thought it would be funny to see how a shy, deaf girl would handle a situation that clearly made her uncomfortable. They had texted her a vague invitation, smiled at each other while pretending it was casual, and waited for her reaction. When she arrived at the small, bustling café, she had no idea what awaited her. She scanned the room, looking for the person she was supposed to meet. That's when she realized everyone else was already there, sitting at tables whispering, and glancing at her with barely concealed amusement. Her stomach twisted. She tried to smile, but it faltered, and she pulled out her notebook, scribbling a quick message. "Hi, I'm here." She handed it to the man waiting near the corner. He looked up from his phone, a warm smile spreading across his face, and nodded. He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. Instead, he gently took the notebook from her and wrote back, "I'm glad you came. Don't worry about anything. Just be yourself." His handwriting was neat, deliberate, and somehow reassuring. The group of co-workers watched, confused. He didn't react the way they expected. They were waiting for her to trip over words or freeze with embarrassment, but he treated her like she mattered, like she was exactly the person he had hoped to meet. They sat down across from each other, the man introducing himself simply as someone who believed in kindness first and judgment later. He didn't ask her about her hearing, didn't make her feel different. He asked her about what she loved to do, her favorite books, and the little things that made her smile. She blinked, surprised at how natural the conversation felt, and for the first time that day she laughed, a soft, hesitant sound that quickly grew into genuine amusement. He smiled back at her, his eyes warm and unassuming, as if he had all the time in the world. The co-workers were stunned. They leaned forward, whispering to one another, realizing their joke had completely backfired. Instead of embarrassment or humiliation, the girl was glowing, her confidence blooming in front of their eyes. They couldn't understand it. The man had turned their prank into something beautiful without even trying. Every gesture he made, every glance and kind word, seemed to dismantle her walls piece by piece. They ordered coffee and pastries, but she barely noticed. What she noticed was that someone was listening, not in the literal sense, but with full attention, with patience and curiosity. He asked her about the sketches she carried in her notebook, the little stories she wrote, and her plans for the future. She felt seen, really seen, for the first time in a long time. Her hands, usually fidgeting nervously, rested on the table as she sketched a small doodle for him. He looked at it, genuinely impressed, and told her it was beautiful. She couldn't stop smiling. The co-workers tried to intervene, whispering sarcastic comments under their breath, hoping to catch her off guard, but she didn't falter. She was too engaged, too alive in the moment. The man noticed their attempts and simply ignored them. He leaned slightly closer, making her feel safe and included. And she realized that for the first time, she wasn't performing or pretending, she was herself. They laughed over shared interests, talked about travel, books, and the little oddities that made life worth living. The world outside the cafe seemed to vanish, leaving just the two of them in a bubble of genuine connection. At one point, he noticed her glancing nervously at the table behind them, where the co-workers sat with smirks still plastered on their faces. He gently wrote in her notebook, "Don't worry about them. They're not part of this. This is your time." She read it and felt a warmth spread through her chest. The fear that had tightened her shoulders all day began to loosen, and she realized that this simple, unassuming man had given her something no one else ever had. The feeling that she belonged somewhere, that she was worth someone's full attention. The co-workers, watching all of this unfold, started to feel the weight of their own actions. What had been meant as a joke had turned into a lesson they weren't prepared for. They had expected embarrassment, awkwardness, maybe a few polite smiles. Instead, they saw a shy girl transformed by genuine kindness, and a man who had no reason to be more than polite, but chose to be extraordinary. One of them muttered almost to themselves, "I didn't think he actually, wow." They realized that sometimes the smallest gestures of humanity could have the largest impact. By the end of the date, the girl felt something she hadn't felt in years, a sense of hope. She walked out of that cafe with a spring in her step, the man by her side offering a reassuring nod and a final note. "You're amazing just as you are. Don't ever forget it." She waved goodbye, a little hesitant but filled with newfound confidence, and for the first time, she imagined that the world wasn't as intimidating as it once had seemed. The co-workers lingered, their faces red, not from embarrassment but from awe. They had witnessed a moment of pure kindness that changed someone's life, and there was nothing funny about it anymore. Later, she confided in a close friend that she had never imagined someone would treat her with such care. She said it felt like someone had finally acknowledged her whole self. Without pity, without judgment, just genuine interest and warmth. The memory of that afternoon stayed with her. A small beacon on the days when the world felt too loud or too confusing. She learned that kindness could be transformative, that it could bridge gaps that seemed impossible to cross, and that it often arrived from unexpected places. The man, on his end, went about his life quietly, never expecting recognition or thanks. He simply believed in treating people with dignity, in showing that empathy and attention could change a day, a life, maybe even a heart. For the girl, though, his presence became a reminder that not everyone was out to humiliate or belittle her. There were people who would notice the small details, who would listen without interruption, who would make her feel like she mattered. That lesson was priceless. Months later, the girl shared her story with a wider circle of friends, writing about the experience in her journal and sharing it with her online community. She spoke about how fear and isolation could be overcome by a single act of kindness. She urged others to treat people with patience, curiosity and respect, especially those who might feel invisible. Her words resonated with many, inspiring others to rethink how they interacted with the people around them. That afternoon at the cafe became more than just a date. It became a symbol of hope. Proof that humanity could surprise you when you least expected it. The co-workers eventually apologized quietly, sheepishly, realizing that their attempt at humor had fallen flat in the best possible way. The girl forgave them not out of obligation, but because she had experienced something far greater than revenge or resentment. She had experienced genuine human connection, and it had taught her that kindness was not just a gesture, but a gift that could ripple outward in ways no one could anticipate. The world, she discovered, was not just a place of judgment and ridicule. It could also be a place of unexpected warmth. Looking back, she often smiled at the memory of that day. She remembered the nervous flutter in her stomach, the moment of fear that almost stopped her from walking in, and then the quiet confidence of the man who chose to meet her with openness and heart. It was a turning point, a reminder that no matter how shy, uncertain or isolated someone might feel, a single act of genuine kindness could change everything. She began to carry that lesson forward, seeking ways to extend the same warmth she had received to others. Small gestures that required little effort but could mean the world. In the end, the shy girl learned that being seen was one of the most profound gifts anyone could offer, and that offering, kindness without expectation, was one of the most powerful ways to touch a life. The world felt a little brighter, a little safer, and infinitely more full of possibilities. That afternoon in the cafe was no longer just a date. It was a story she would carry forever, a proof that humanity could be tender, generous, and transformative. And for anyone listening, it's a gentle reminder, when you take a moment to treat someone with genuine care, you might just change the course of their life, and maybe even your own. Share your own stories of kindness in the comments below, and let's keep spreading warmth, one heart at a time.